Every now and then, a video game comes along that, at first glance, seems like any other ROM. But then right when you think it's another great but familiar adventure, it takes your expectations and twists them in a way that makes the experience feel fresh, exciting, and memorable without taking away everything that made its predecessors the juggernauts that they have become. Dragon Quest V is one of those games. It all boils down to the story and characters. Like every other mainline Dragon Quest game, DQ5 has all the ingredients for a cozy and familiar adventure. There's the trope of the great ancient evil, the trope of the prophesized chosen one, and the trope of things coming together thanks to the power of friendship. We've all seen these tropes elsewhere, and we've seen them executed poorly and executed amazingly. However, Dragon Quest V takes those tropes and subverts expectations without breaking them apart. Let's start with the fact that this is a story that takes place across the main character's life. You start DQ5 as a child, traveling with his father. He's got his own quest, and you're just there for the ride, though you do get to conduct some of your own little shenanigans as well. The game then shifts as your character grows older and becomes an adult. For this leg of the journey, much of the story focuses on self-discovery and the sense of adventure. It's about coming back to revisit places you missed as a child, or to reconnect with people you haven't seen in years. Finally, the story moves forward one more time and puts you in the shoes of a parent. You'll get to experience the world and the story the same way your father did back at the beginning of the game. You'll even be around the same level he was. It changes the perspective, and you'll never be able to look at the opening hours the same way again. Of course, a story like this only works when you have great characters, and Dragon Quest V has them in spades. From the jolly Rodrigo Bruscoletti to the best man of all, Sancho, DQ5 has a wide variety of memorable folks. You'll even meet a fellow or two who have strong connections to Dragon Quest IV, this game's predecessor and prequel. Some characters can seem annoying at first. I'm looking at you, Prince Harry. But don't push them away. This is intentional. And over the course of your character's life, you'll see how these characters change as events in the story and the passage of time affect them too. Dragon Quest V has an evolving world, and its characters evolve with it too. Like every Dragon Quest, DQ5 manages to stay traditional while also bringing revolutionary ideas to the table. Anyone who has ever picked up a JRPG will feel comfortable jumping into the gameplay loop but still find a few neat surprises. Let's start by tackling what Dragon Quest V keeps and refines from the genre. Yes, this is entirely turn-based combat. There's nothing fancy here, but it's the way the game balances things that makes it so engaging. You'll fall into a neat rhythm of trying to lower enemy defenses, boosting your attack, raising your speed, and then wailing on enemies with physical or magical attacks. When you're out in the world and in certain dungeons, you have access to your wagon. This allows you to swap out party members during combat. This allows you to have something like an A team to fight the monsters head-on, while you reserve a B team to cast healing spells or something to reduce enemy encounters. The wagon, however, is also what introduces Dragon Quest V's main gimmick: monster taming. Yes, you'll still get a good number of human characters to journey with, but for the most part, you'll also build a party composed of tamed monsters. You can have the hero as your main offensive fighter, and then have a monster to serve as your tank, another one for healing, and another as a support mage or extra DPS. One thing I have to mention about Dragon Quest V is the excellent pacing, in terms of both the story and combat. You can go back and watch my playthrough of the game and see that I never had to stop and grind. As long as I never ran from fights often, I was always at the right level and I had just enough gold to get the gear I needed. I did grind twice, for about 20 minutes each time, but those were voluntary moments where I just felt the bloodlust to hunt down a few metal slimes. As mentioned, that pacing applies to the story too. You're never lingering too long in a dungeon or in a town. Dragon Quest V moves at a decent pace that is never too slow to be boring or too fast to be ignored. You can get a lot done in just a few hours at a time. I finished the game in under 30 hours, around 27 to be exact, and I felt more than satisfied when the credits rolled. Keep in mind that this is a Dragon Quest game, so some things that may seem archaic are still in this game. This includes only being able to save in churches. For a while, you can only revive characters or treat those with poison status at churches as well. It may seem obtuse at first, but it's there for good reason, to help pace yourself. Most of the dungeons in Dragon Quest V aren't too long. The game respects your time, and the dungeons are often only a few floors but filled with fun things to do. However, if you're not ready for all the challenges inside, the game encourages you to give it a shot and then go back to town to recover, use the inns, churches, and shops. It's an ingenious way to help you get used to adjusting your strategy and party arrangement while also exploring and getting more familiar with the world. For this review, I played the Nintendo DS version of the game, which came out in 2008 in Japan and 2009 everywhere else. The original Super Famicom version of the game launched in 1992, and there was a beautiful PS2 remake that came out solely in Japan in 2004. The DS version is based on the PS2 remake, albeit with altered graphics due to the change in hardware. This DS remake is also the basis for the 2014-2015 mobile release as well. Regardless of which version you pick up, Dragon Quest V is a gorgeous game to look at. The DS version in particular has beautifully animated monster sprites during combat, and the world itself is presented with vibrant colors that help make Akira Toriyama's distinct art style pop out even more. In fact, it's the monsters that truly steal the spotlight here. Yes, it's always a pleasure to look at the big profile photos of the hero, Bianca, and the other characters, but it's the monsters that will make you want to keep coming back. Not only do they reflect Toriyama's art so well, they also animate so smoothly. I'm always excited to get into combat and discover all sorts of new enemies to fight, and the art and animation play a huge role in that. The mobile version of the game is perhaps the prettiest version available for non-Japanese players. It takes the DS game's visuals and cleans it up for modern phone displays. I do adore the Super Famicom's visuals, but there's no denying that if you can play the PS2 version, that's definitely one worth checking out. Of course, visuals aren't the only key aspect to consider. Let's discuss sound and music. The Dragon Quest franchise has always had iconic tunes and jingles that date all the way from the first game and still pop up in the more recent entries. You'll recognize the Level Up jingle, and the Confession jingle whenever you save your game. Those are always neat to hear, and the Dragon Quest Overture, the series' main theme song, does make a triumphant appearance in the game, but it's some of the original tunes in DQ5 that make it so memorable to me. In many ways, the songs of Dragon Quest V defined my adventure. Even as I lie down at night, I can still hear many of the songs that accompanied me throughout my experience with the game. There's so many to list, such as the Overworld tune, the theme of love, the iconic battle theme, and the theme of devastation. Every Dragon Quest game brings forth a plethora of amazing tracks, but I think DQ5 is a strong contender for having one of the best soundtracks in the franchise. Each song is a little subtle in nature, but they'll stick with you long after you finish the game. I haven't played Dragon Quest V in over a decade, and when I picked it up to stream it, I was pleasantly surprised with how well the game held up. I remembered it being a masterpiece of a JRPG, and even to this day, it still stands strong and holds that title high with pride. The game excels with its masterful story that spans generations, its beautiful presentation and music, and the addicting yet easy to grasp gameplay that ensures anyone can pick it up and play. The pacing is just right, and given that it's on mobile, anyone can buy and play it right now. I do wish the game would get a modern re-release on consoles and PC so it could get a spotlight shown on it, but I'll take what I can get right now, and you should too. Do not hesitate to play Dragon Quest V, regardless of which version you pick. This is a bona fide masterpiece that you'll enjoy coming back to over the years. This is Atreides, and thank you for watching.